Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another uh, movie spoiler review. Hopefully, you guys had a very happy Mother's Day. Just putting out a movie, not putting out a movie, I'm doing a movie review of 2006. Yeah, 2006 movie Nanny McPhee. Before we continue, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell if you like content like this and want to support the channel. Please follow me in the links in the description below. Uh, yeah, so this movie is directed by Kirk Jones, screenplay by Emma Thompson, starring Emma Thompson as Nanny McPhee, Colin Firth as Cedric Brown, uh, uh, Kelly McDonald as Evelyn, the Mr. Brown's uh, maid. Uh, Angela Lansbury as Great Aunt Lady Adelaide Stitch. Uh, what was it? Milda Staunton as Mrs. Bletherwick, the military-minded cook. Then there's the children of Mr. Brown, Thomas Sangster as Simon Brown, the eldest kid, Kelly McDonald, no, Eliza Bennett as Tor Brown, Raphael Coleman as Eric, Jennifer Ray Dakeen as Lily, excuse me, Samuel Honeywood as Sebastian, Holly Gibbs as Chrissy Brown. And of course, as always, when it comes to babies, there's always twins for some reason. As Hibby and Hibby and Zena Barnes to play Aggie, the baby. Celia Emery as Mrs. Selma Quickly. So, yeah, I seen Nanny McPhee not at the movie theaters but on TV when I was a little kid. Only seeing once, probably. Uh, and this movie made a fair bit of money, but maybe I didn't peep this as a kid. But after last year when I reviewed Mary Poppins, this is just Mary Poppins. Now, of course, this is based on a children's book uh, uh, called Nurse Matilda by Christina Brand. And I'm not sure if Christina Brand lived around the same time as the writer of Mary Poppins. Okay. Yeah, P.L. Travers. Yeah. Uh, they would have been around the same, they would have been active around the same time. Uh, not too long, not too, probably not too far from each other, to be honest. Uh, so it's kind of funny that, matter of fact, what's funny, well, it's kind of funny that these two, well, who knows if they ever met each other. It would, make a bit of sense for them to have met each other, but there's only an artist rendering of Christina Brand and no actual photograph of her at any point. Or maybe it is. I just, only briefly looking it up right now. Uh, but since P.L. Travers was born a little earlier than Christina, makes sense that, probably Christina probably got, I won't say complete inspiration from P.L. Travers, but as you watch this movie, there's some definite similarities here and there that you can't help but wonder if she got, inspired and do some kind of twist to it. Nothing wrong with that. It wasn't like a full blown, uh, you know, copying, but there's, she definitely, borrowed a lot of ideas. Um, and as watching this movie, it legit felt like I was watching a storybook come to life, especially with these zany antics coming from characters, like a donkey behaving like a human, uh, and it's really like very very goofy. And clearly it's supposed to be meant for kids, but clearly they're trying to do like a penguins, animated thingamabob, like Mary Poppins did, and it just didn't work because it looks off-putting. Anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but this is the story begins not too long, not sure exactly how long, but it's probably still fairly fresh, that the mom of the family has passed away, and the dad, who is a mortician, is struggling to keep ends meet, trying to stay afloat because he has 7 kids, uh, all of which are completely rambunctious, completely different from the children in the Mary Poppins movie, where they weren't this level of bad. Like hanging from the chandelier, causing like making these contraptions to like tossing, head of lettuce all over the place and causing like a huge mess and loud noises, and nobody can wrangle these kids together. And I don't fully believe in corporal punishment, but what I do admit that I think it's best that you give, they're at the age where it's, best that you give them some slight spankings here and there. I ain't talking about like full on beatings, but like some spankings here and there just to set the, tone of this behavior is not acceptable. But then by the time they, reach like, 10, they can like, start grounding their asses and taking like toys away and things like that. They literally have a kid in like a crock pot, the baby in a crock pot, sitting amongst like, vegetables and stuff, freaking out the 17th nanny. Now, as a parent, I'm not a parent, but you would think as a parent, after the run off maybe like the second nanny, you would have been like, let me talk to because this father is clearly like obviously out of sorts because he's going through something. Now this is set in the 1860s Victorian era, so even Freud probably wasn't even like a thing yet, or even at the very least on the rise at the time. So psychiatry was just viewed for just strictly for crazy people. But clearly this dude had to like, still deal with the loss of his wife, and now he's obviously stressing on how to handle all these children while trying to keep everything together. But it's just like, dude, you gotta lay down the law. You're the father. You gotta tell these kids, like, you gotta straighten the heck up. The next nanny's coming in here, I don't want her to sit there being chased out this freaking house. But on the 17th, clearly this is based off of kids, but maybe it's overly exaggerated for comedic effect. But trust and believe, there's literally no parent, no matter what station of life you are or status of life you are, there's no parent in their right mind will allow their kid to chase off of an adult. And I'm not sure, like, why this nanny, the 17th nanny, freaking out so much. Like, oh my God, the baby's in a crock pot. It's like, what, was the baby playing dead or something? It's a baby. It doesn't have any concept of playing dead. She freaking out. And you got, the maid and the cook. It's like, oh my God, what are we going to do with these children? You're freaking adults. Why you ain't acting like, yes, I know this is a very Paddington type of comedy storybook, vibes going on, but if you're adapting into a movie, you can throw in some level of, adult mindset or maturity to, like, they do, but then they don't, because, like, it's no way in God's green earth that there's 3 adults in this place and y'all let these kids, run y'all. It's like, that boggles the mind how you just, think that is remotely, obviously don't think it's okay, but they just let it ride. It's like, I don't know what to do. Oh, it's like, how about grow some fucking balls and, send these kids to their freaking room. I mean, he sends them to the room without supper and everything like that. But no, that ain't gonna cut it. We're past that now. Take all their toys away, and so there's nothing but, like, their beds in there until, like, they straighten out. Because, like I said, it would benefit them to have some freaking counseling, or, having to sit down with the kids and asking them, why are you acting this way? What's going on with you? Talk to me. Being a parent, you gotta, talk with your kids just to get in the bottom of it, because there's no way you will. I just did a review last week of Smart House, Disney Smart House, which you guys can check out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl, and check out my review of that, because I, speak on something very similar to that, but ironically, with a lower budget, they still managed to handle a situation like a dead mom, because the kid, the older son, there's only 2 kids, but the older son is, clearly acting out because he misses his mom, and the father, at least halfway, through the movie, sat down with the kid and expressed how the kid feels, and trying to understand where he's coming from, and express how he's coming from as a person who lost a wife, but also not finding it acceptable how disrespectful that boy was being towards the potential love interest in the film. This father here, I know is, technically slightly 2 different tones, but this father here isn't behaving like a father. He seems like not a dork, but it's just like, like he's completely in over his head. He probably slightly is, but it's just like, dude, you have 7 kids. You think after the 3rd one, you probably got a handle on things, or you like, okay, I got a rhythm going, so I know how to talk with, because, yeah, these kids got different ages from, like, probably like 13 on down. But you should be, like, hip to how to, dealing with stages of, because you got, like, half boys, half girls. And so you should know how to handle each one respectively, given the age, so you can, get these kids under control. So he, hears this mysterious voice in whispering, all you need is Nanny McPhee, something like that. Then when the kids, like, fool around in the kitchen when they're not supposed to be in the kitchen, there's a knock on the door, and of course you get this whole silhouette. I guess it's supposed to be some kind of iconic silhouette of Nanny McPhee, played by Emma Thompson, and it's just this, warded, heavy set, one tooth of a woman, and just out of respect in a way, about to address, the ugliness of her features. And she, mentions about, like I said, it's very Mary Poppins because it's never addressed about their fee or payment for services rendered. Uh, she only tells him about like 5 things that she gonna do to set these kids straight, like saying please and thank you, get up from bed and go into bed when they're told, getting dressed when they're told, learn how to listen. You I might be forgetting one, but just setting a baseline of getting these kids to understand basic responsibility and how to act, so that way they won't become spoiled assholes when they get older. Because clearly they're just acting up, especially the oldest boy, because obviously you know the the mom passing away clearly affected them in various ways. Um, so she expressed to the children like, stop what you're doing, straighten up, and get upstairs and get ready for bed. And they acting like, oh, did I hear something? Oh, it must be the wind. And it's like, okay, I got y'all. So she got this magic cane. Clearly, Nanny McPhee and Mary Poppins are just witches. I'm sorry, they got magic powers, and it's whimsical. So the adults, are they see something, but they can't really explain it, so they kind of brush it off. But the kids clearly know. She stomps the cane to the ground and cause everything to fast forward with these kids. They can't let go, so whatever they're doing, they're just keep doing it, and they can't stop themselves. And in order to make them stop, they ask like, please stop. And she says, please stop, Nanny McPhee. And of course, the oldest boy is obviously one being stubborn. He's like, please, Nanny McPhee. And then she smacks the cane to the ground again. Then puff of smoke, everything, because the nanny, not the maid and the cook, all are back on a clean sitting at the kitchen table in a clean kitchen, thinking like, oh, like time was reversed or something like that, and like nothing happened. And so the kids are in a straight line and then marching upstairs. So now it's like, was I kind of glad they didn't drag this on, but in most movies around the early 2000s dealing with like, rambunctious kids, they're usually trying to get at war with the nanny in this kind of situation. But no, we didn't drag this on, too long. Of course, they're thinking like, oh, well, next morning they oh no, well, before they even like get into the morning, when Nanny McPhee is getting the kids ready for bed, the kids all pretend like, oh, my name is Fots. Yes, it's Farts, Fots. And they always like, my name is Poop, my name is Bottom, and just being little shits. And I know I get I'm not trying to make a pun. And so Nanny McPhee goes to each of the children and say their real name without even them wondering like, how do you know our names? We didn't even tell you our names. And so leaving it kind of like in a creepy tone, because this could easily be played creepy, but I keep wanting to say it's Simon. What's the older kid's name? Yeah, it is Simon. Simon, uh, thinks, oh, it must be hypnotism. She's making us see things that aren't really there. So they decide like just don't look into her directly their eyes and we'll be fine. So they next morning they pretend like they're sick when they're supposed to be getting up. When she's telling them to get up, uh, uh, so they pretend like they're sick. They painting their faces in darted red circles with a marker on their face, pretend like they're sick. So Nanny McPhee gives them the measles. So and then magically traps them in their bed. So now they're literally sick in bed, and spoon feeding them like medicine that's look like mud that moves on its own. Uh, just out of sheer torment to the kids because they think like they can get one over on her. But it also shows Nanny McPhee's like unlike Mary Poppins had a fair bit of discipline to the children in that film, but it's a little bit more whimsical and instead of more. I think Nanny McPhee is a little bit more stern, while Mary Poppins does a little sing song, which I'm kind of glad this movie doesn't have any kind of songs in it. I mean, then again, P.L. Travers, according to records, didn't really care to have her story turned to some kind of freaking musical or let alone a cartoon. Disney kind of just threw that in there because that's what he wanted to do and completely nix any of her wishes. But here with Nanny McPhee movie, there's no kind of whimsical musical thing, so it's just like no, this is discipline in a way without it being harsh. It's just like the right amount of punishment to just set them straight. While Mary Poppins seems a little bit more, you know, I don't want to clean up my chores. Oh well, and then she makes the things come alive, and there's a dance and a song, and everybody's having fun and turn, work into fun kind of thing, and get them to learn that way. Well, there's none of that crap with Nanny McPhee. It's like she, has boundaries and rules, where it's not crazy rules, but it's the basic fundamentals for young kids to learn that they can build off of into their adulthood. Uh, so uh, eventually they get better, but the one of the kids asked the father like, "Can you read us a story?" And of course the dad's like too busy, which I love the look in this in a scene. If you pay attention, then Nanny McPhee kind of rolls her eyes. It's like, cause the father, kind of like the father in Mary Poppins. Like I said, there's gonna be a lot of comparisons here. Like the father in Mary Poppins, has a lesson to learn himself about like pay attention to his kids and the needs of his kids, because you know you're lost into your own hurt that you're neglecting your kids. Well, you're not intentionally trying to do it, but it's just in the process of trying to save your kids, you're pushing them away. Because I think he put it where it's like he's used to having the wife handling those kind of nooks and crannies, but now that she's gone, he's having a tough go of it on how to be two parents at once. But then you learn, and here's a kind of creepy. It could easily be played creepy. He's talking to the chair his wife used to sit in, like she's really there. Now, at first glance, it seems very crazy. Like he got some kind of schizophrenia kind of thing going on. I'm not sure, but it just I don't know. I don't go that far because it's probably not too recently that he probably lost his wife, so the wound's still there. So he's kind of like coping in a way. It's like when he's kind of like he needs like some reassurance, and it kind of helps him be able to, at the very least, pretend like she's still there, so he can like just get stuff off his chest because she's probably been the one he always been able to confide into. So this is kind of a way to still get that while dealing with the fact that the late wife's aunt has been taking care of the mortgage and everything like that in this big house, and he has to remarry in order to, because she can't, obviously she can't keep helping for too long, because she's been paying like a monthly allowance to the place. Even though he works, you can't really maintain a house of that size. But then again, why don't you downgrade to a smaller house and possibly get rid of a cook and the maid? Because clearly you can't afford all that stuff. Now, then again, you got 7 kids. Clearly, and you got to work at the same time. Clearly, you can't like watch over them like 24/7. But shouldn't they have school? Well, it's part of the summertime, but maybe you don't really need. Matter of fact, how about the maid learns how to cook so you have 2 things in one and probably get rid of the cook? Clearly, the cook's at her wits' end with these freaking kids. And then downgrade to a smaller house so that way kind of ease up the burden from the aunt to pay an obscene amount of money, and you can put in some. Not like he's probably not chipping in, but that way it takes like the weight off your wallet a bit, and less of a stressor. Just saying. But then again, you got 7 kids, probably needs the room, but a few of those kids can double up. Obviously the 2 older kids can have their own room, but then again, they all going to eventually grow up. So it's like, how long can you keep up having them sharing rooms together? But you probably have to figure something out. At the very least, get rid of the cook and just have the maid learn how to cook so you can do 2 things at once. But then again, that'll be too much for that one maid to handle everything on her own. I'm trying. Well, then again, you got 2 older kids. They can start helping out. Helping out around the house, like picking up after themselves and learn how to cook. I mean, learn some, cooking, some basic cooking skills. They're old enough to start learning how to boil stuff and make porridge or something. I don't know, and clean up. Just to take the load off of everybody's hands. Matter of fact, the middle children can pick up some trash and stuff like that. Come on, they barely do anything in the house. And I wasn't too big of a fan when I was at that age. Somebody made to clean up so much stuff because my stepmom at the time was acting like she's not OCD, but she might as well be the way she like overly like waking up at the 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, which is freaking criminal, just to spend most of the day cleaning up, and it drove me nuts. I'm not like that into it, but at the very least, yeah, you can just mop, you can wash some dishes, okay, take out the trash. That's some basic stuff. Not asking you to like take a scrubbing toothbrush and go into the grout and everything like that, because that's a lot. But I'm just saying, kids could help. Anyway, then the kids started notice something when each point marked off on the list of Nanny McPhee's rules is like satisfied. She loses a deformity, like her mole's starting to disappear, and somebody notices, but maybe they're not, like, oh, it's a figment of my imagination. But it's like she has like a big mole, and I can't help but think about Austin Powers. I was like, mole, like mole. Is God, was that Fred Savage who played that guy with the mole on his face? Kind of, I might be wrong, but kind of, I'm just getting Fred Savage his name in my head to attribute to that character in Austin Powers. Might be wrong, but uh, it's like a big ass mole and it's gone. You don't. Of course, they hesitate to address it because of the fact that it might seem rude. Because they're proper British people. Um, uh, but little by little, the kids starting to grow respect for Nanny McPhee's advice. Uh, like I said, I'm glad they didn't stretch out this little tit for tat between them. It's like they come and understand, like, oh, she's different from all the nannies. She's actually understanding and isn't uh, like a tyrant or anything like that. Um, and they confiding into her about like not wanting their father to get a new wife because they reading all these fairy tales, as they told the maid earlier in the movie, that every single children's story that has a stepmom in it, they all turn out to be wicked people, which is kind of a effed up propaganda if you think about it. It's like all of them have been wicked stepmothers. It's Grimm's fairy tale, so I'm not sure how the brothers Grimm, when they were alive, did they have like some really really cruel stepmom growing up? So now they kind of like projecting that in their stories. So that's probably why they it's been adapted. So it's permeated the zeitgeist of today that every stepmother is always wicked. I'm just backtracking because there is something to what the kid was saying. The middle child, the boy with glasses, who's pretty much Ricky Harry Potter. I think it was Sebastian or Eric. Uh, Pretty sure it might have been Eric. And uh, they asked Nanny McPhee, could they do something about like uh, their father's like relationship woes, and Nanny McPhee says like, I can't affect the nature of the person's heart, which is like a typical thing when it comes to like magic. Like, I can't affect matters of the heart. Or if it's dealing like a sports movie like Angels in the Outfield, it's like we can't help win big tournaments because that'll be against the rules. Even though you've been breaking those rules for all the other games, but I guess because it's not a major tournament, it would be considered, it wouldn't be considered cheating. Uh, or we can't, raise the dead kind of thing. Was it's those typical cliche rules. Um, or you can't wish for more wishes kind of situation. Um, so uh, uh, Nanny McPhee suggests to Simon, since he's the oldest, go talk with the father and express how you feel about the entire situation, because he needs to like marry, and he's thinking about asking out this uh horrible woman who's went through 3 husbands, which is kind of like suspicious, and probably the most giant even from way back then it would have been considered like a red flag, but it's definitely a red flag these day and age. Like how you go through 3 husbands and they all died. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that's how they put it. And it's like, no, stay away from me. You're crazy. You're probably crazy. I don't think they probably died. It's just like let's just say they didn't all die. They all probably just ended. The relationship ended poorly, and it's like, okay, even the bare minimum, that isn't a good sign. But he's desperate because he needs to be able to keep his kids together, because around this particular time frame, the Victorian era, there's workhouses and orphanages, which he doesn't want his kids all split up or working off debtors' prisons and stuff like that. Can't have that. Every time I hear about debtor's prison, I can't help but think about uh, uh, the Christmas Carol. Where like, are there no workhouses? I can't help but think about it. Like my mind immediately jumped to that because Christmas Carol is one of my favorite stories of all time. Because I literally have a book and because I loved it so much. Uh, so I'm glad he had like a heart to heart with his kids about that kind of thing. But his son went to his job to talk with him, and immediately after, he asked his father, uh, "Can I ask you something?" And he's like, "You can ask me anything, sure." And he's like very warm and inviting, and it's like, "Yeah." And he brings up about like his potential interest in another woman that might, become the new stepmom, and and he immediately just goes into defense mode, or not even defense mode, just straight up attack mode to his, I'd say he's maybe 12, 13 years old, probably 13 at the most, and just snaps at the kid because he thinks like, oh, it's not your place to ask such things. And it's like the kid wasn't being, it's probably the most behaved this kid's been, or at least you see the signs of him really come to him in a very respectable manner, calm demeanor, and you immediately, because you're too afraid to speak with your kids on an emotional level, intelligent level, you meeting them with a poor energy, the polar opposite of what they're giving you. And of course, why wouldn't that kid retaliate in like a negative manner because you gave him negative uh, energy just right off the bat, because you can't like have those slightly uncomfortable talk. Is it? He doesn't need to be uncomfortable. Just address to the kid's concerns. It's like nobody's gonna replace your mom. I love your mom. I always will. But I don't want to, like I need, like, you're going to need a mom eventually, and I'm going to want to get back on that horse and meet new people and see where it goes. But it's not going to ever replace your mom. Just have that kind of talk with your kid. Uh, so doesn't have to be grotesque, but just talk with them, you know like you would with any person, and but doesn't need to be vulgar, but just using words that to a level they can understand it and comprehend. So Sam goes running towards Nanny McPhee. Don't know why he couldn't just say like, I tried to talk with him. I told you he wouldn't listen to me. And so, of course, Nanny McPhee doesn't want to interfere. That's the another big difference between her and Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins wouldn't hesitate to like chew out the father in certain cases. Oh, it wasn't blatant, but it's kind of like very like subtle of a you know checking him. But Nanny Fee is pretty much hands off kind of situation. Like, I'm just here to do a job, but clearly I'm helping, but I'm not being direct about it because I don't want to influence anything. It's a very hands off approach. Um. Uh. So she suggests to Simon that I can't. Well, Simon comes up with the idea of what he can do to keep this wicked woman, because clearly this woman that her his father's being set up with is clearly like you know not good. But he asked Nanny McPhee that can you promise me not to interfere? I was like, yeah, I won't interfere, but are you prepared to handle the consequences afterwards? And of course, the kid is just so eager to like say yeah, because he without. Of course, this kind of plays well because he is a kid. He doesn't let this stuff marinate for a minute or two before he decides to agree to this. Uh, which I kind of I wish that Nanny McPhee kind of like leans a little bit more adamant, with something like, think about it, Simon. Are you prepared to handle the consequences that might come of this? Because I will step away and let you guys do what you need to do. And, she didn't do that. But I kind of wish she kind of like laid it on a little bit thicker than that. So that way he can take a moment to ponder before he agrees. That's what I'm asking. So this is where it leads into these shenanigans where they try to pull some Home Alone stuff on this girl, but uh, uh, the father sees all these antics and he's like, in a goofiest manner, uh, dealing. He sees one of the kids like putting like this arrow behind the seat when she's about to sit down, literally in the chair that is, carefully preserved that the former wife used to sit in, and he sees that and he, is like, oh no. He looks like he's trying to, be very fresh with her, but he's trying to wrangle these kids. He's trying to yank the arrow off, out of the kid's hands. He, Colin Firth is like this. I got the biggest laugh out of me. Colin Firth like kind of kicks the kid on the behind. It's like he kicked his little butt. That got a laugh out of me. Um, uh, uh, and then he's keeping like the kids from dropping a spider on this woman, keeping her from touching the doorknob that they're literally electrifying. Which I don't know how these kids, they are some freaking electrical engineers or something like that, because they managed to put all this stuff together, Home Alone style, at least Victorian age Home Alone style. Um, so the lady, leaves off thinking like, oh, uh, the dad is kind of a pervert or something. Uh, but then it's like, oh wow, I'm gonna lose everything. But then, oh, like I kind of skipped over a part where the aunt shows up to inspect everything and potentially take one of the kids to teach, educate and be a proper person. And she's pondering on taking Chrissy. And all the kids are freaking out because they don't want any of them being separated. And it's part of one of the most dramatic scenes ever. So, like, the father who literally thinks, oh, before you can get into that, this is very storybook kind of, you know, design of this particular character, because she looks literally like where her clothes is and how the makeup of the pointy elongated nose makes her look like like a little, like a bird. It's like that kind of, like, she looks like like if like a bird was a human. uh it looks exactly like that. Even like her clothes looks feathery. So she, thinks she's, because thanks to Nanny McPhee, who says she doesn't work on Sunday afternoons, shows up in the nick of time to trick the the aunt. But she is expressed to the kids like, it's not gonna last long. You're gonna have to figure something out. Uh, so thanks to Simon's quick thinking, and because he have the maid uh uh Evangeline to pretend like she's one of Brown's children, and so she takes her, and this is the best way to save all the actual kids, because it's like a very dramatic scene, because he Mr. Brown wasn't even aware of this switch. So he's literally It's probably the most, outside of maybe the Kingsman that I ever seen Colin Farrell really kind of like do some Tom Cruise run uh, in this field. He's chasing after the horse and buggy and screaming, "Chrissy!" Like, look, because he's like a father. He's like, I don't want this woman taking my kid, and so he's chasing it down. And he feels like he's because the dramatic music really kind of envelops this like powerful scene. To be, if I honest with you guys, this is probably one of the most powerful scenes I got from this film so far. Everything else seems kind of a little too kooky to me for my comfortability, because it seems like they really lean into this whole children's storybook format, so it kind of got this kind of children's mindset that kind of borderline uh like slightly below Paddington levels of quirkiness. uh but Chrissy, it wasn't taken, and Evangeline, who's always trying to uh educate herself because she's learning how to read and stuff like that, she took the place. So now, like, she's gonna be, get the proper education that she always wanted, uh, under the guise of being one of Mr. Brown's children. So that way, Mr. Brown, who she's clearly infatuated with, get to keep all his children. She made that sacrifice, but it wasn't even much of a sacrifice because she's still be able to get what she wants, but at the same time protecting the children that she cared for and the person she clearly likes. um uh when the kids eventually go to apologize to the woman that was clearly rude, uh Miss Quickly, she eventually shows her true colors, and knowing that the aunt is filthy rich, they clearly like, oh, say yes, sure, but clearly like shows how much of an ass she is. Breaks this rattle that was given to the baby by the late mother, and of course, uh, McPhee sees all this, and of course he organizes behind the scenes, set everything up to get like the aunt and the showing up with Evangeline, who's talking like a very proper British lady and saying, very astute words and stuff like that. Uh, very articulate and everything. And her posture is upright, and she's got like a big glow up, a Victorian age glow up, and of course, Ms. Brown looking like, oh my god, making googly eyes at her and everything like that. Um, but uh, uh, you hear like the baby's, repeating the words of Quickly when she's ordering the kids to like behave. So the baby repeats her, but the baby pronounces it beehive, and he looks at McPhee and she says to her, you need to listen. You need to learn how to listen. So the kids eventually got this, beehive and set loose all these bees to mess up this wedding. And he looks at his father, and his father looks back at him, and his father finally clued in that his kids don't like this woman. So they cause this massive food fight along with Evangeline and most of the other guests. And, they chase off this wicked woman and her friend. Then the aunt is just flabbergasted of this entire behavior. And the kids stand up for their father and says like, Evangeline loves our father, and she should be the one that should be with him. But everybody's like, ain't that's his daughter? What's going on? But then they come clean on the fact that about the switch. Thanks to Nanny McPhee, who used her magic who now looks like, how Emma Thompson is. Very beautiful and everything like that. No warts and all the other stuff. changes her outfit into like a proper wedding dress. You know, they the father marries Evangeline, and they all become like a happy family. But then she mysteriously walks away with her iconic line mentioning uh, that she mentions earlier in the film: "When you need me but don't want me, then I must stay. But when you want me but no longer need me, then I have to go." So yeah, that's where the movie ends. It had a budget for 25 million at the time, and it raked in at the box office 123 million. So it's pretty well. It did pretty well. Uh, it was an alright film. Definitely like a decent one for your kids. Uh, but I don't see myself ever returning to this. It's just like a fun thing. I thought like, when I was setting up like a list of stuff to review for Mother's Day month, I'm looking like, man, what can I see? And I came across Nanny McPhee. And I was like, oh, you know what? I haven't seen Nanny McPhee in so long since I was a little kid. Let me put this on the list and talk about it. It's like a good, because it turns, because the mom's gone, which in the movie hints at the mom, who's in that, heaven and something like that, set up to send Nanny McPhee to look after her family to straighten things out. Because you see Nanny McPhee bow to the head of the bows her head to the mom's chair, clearly hinted at like mysterious forces sent Nanny McPhee to help this family. Uh, but yeah, this is like a very cool role for Emma Thompson, and she was a standout for me. And Colin Firth. Nobody else was egregious in this film, but I'm just saying those were the standouts to me. Uh, and obviously, throughout the course, not just the kids have to learn some kind of lesson. The father has to learn the lesson too about having to be present for his kids and how much they mean to him instead of pushing them away and actually listening to what they have to say, that kind of thing. Like towards the end, he listened to his kid when he realizing that this woman he's about to marry isn't good for him. But yeah, that was Nanny McPhee. She's like, aside from the dead mom, Nanny McPhee seems like a strong motherly figure. That's why I probably put her on the list. So anyway, next week will be the sequel, Nanny McPhee Returns, which I barely remember even that film. I vaguely remember this film before I started the review, but I cannot recall how the sequel played out. I know I've seen it, but I just cannot remember any of it. So it'll be fun to revisit that. So look out for that next week. I will see you guys in a little bit as I do my proper review of X-Men 97. So look out for that in just like a few minutes. So I'll see you all soon. Take care.